I think I have been preparing for this moment 52 years. That's how old I am. And I've been in India for about 10 hours. And professionally, I've been working in this 30 years. So please, I apologize if I don't know your country as well as I should. But this is an incredibly exciting time to discuss the issue of capacity building. The title of the presentation is Reflections on National, in quotations, Urban Capacity Building Systems. I will use three cases, the cases of China, Brazil, and Mexico. And I've sprinkled questions throughout the presentation because I have questions more than answers. And the first question, or the setting, is what seems to be working and trending, and the implications to build transformative systems. I think that is what we are looking for. The first case is the case of China. And the case of China, I think, it's a system that's creating capacity to deliver results for growth. And I don't think that's debatable. It's happening. But the big question there is, can top-down systems of creating capacity can create capacity for sustainable growth or just growth? And that, I think, is a very key question that we need to seek answers to in the case of China. The first attribute, which I think is very important, is that there are norms for capacity building. It is overall in the public sector. It is managed by the Central Organization Department, and officials at Director General level and above need to take training. It's mandatory. It is obligatory. 3 months on-the-job training for every 5 years, and others are required more than 12 days per year. The providers of capacity building include the party schools, administrative schools, executive leadership academies, and others. So you have, in fact, the demand is created by regulation. And we're going to talk about 3 cases within China. And I'll go more in detail into the urban planning one. It was launched, the certification of urban planners was launched in 2000 by the Ministry of Housing and Urban and Rural Development. The certification requires candidates to pass tests, so it is competency-based and test determined on subject matters including principles of urban planning, knowledge of urban planning administration, and legal framework, and urban planning practices. There's also an interesting dimension to this, that they have to maintain their certification, which implies that they have to take 120 hours of continuing education every 3 years. So there is not only building capacity, but maintaining certification. Not all planners are certified in China. Of the more than 10,000 certified urban planners, there are more than 100,000 planners, but only 10,000 approximately are certified. So what does that mean? You have a system of certification. You have a system of maintaining the certification. So you've created a system. You've created actually a demand for the suppliers, which I think is the first message. And in this case, under these circumstances, and the numbers are not completely up to date, but they're approximate, you will require 425,000 credit hours of continuing educations to be provided so that you have those 10,000 certified planners maintain their certification. So you've created a market, if you will, which I think is an important message. I'm going to talk about an institution that works in this context, and that's the Urban Planning Society of China. It was incorporated by urban planners in 1956. And they have 20,000 members. Many of the certified planners are members of this select group of planners. And in this context, I want to talk about some initiatives that we're working in capacity building in China. And I think the most interesting twist about this, and I'll come to at the end of the presentation, is that we are now working on courses that are now part of the continuing education credit system of China. So you have a global institution embedded into the certification and maintenance of competencies of practitioners. In this case, it's an e-learning course on sustainable urban land use planning. And I think that this is a very exciting and achievement that took many, many years to get there, and it has implications for the future. And we'll talk about the implications at the concluding of the presentation. The next case in China is the Chinese Academy of Governance. And I won't go into all the details because I'll run over time, but I can just inform you and share with you that we, with them, in collaboration with the Society of Planners, we have the urban planning course. The next institution, oops, I pressed twice, is the China National Academy of Mayors. A very interesting institution. I've actually given talks there. It's a daunting place to talk to 100 Chinese mayors waiting for the clock to strike 12 for lunch. It's a tough audience, a really tough audience to try to reach, but reachable. And over the many years that we've been working with them, we now have a joint program, which I would have never imagined possible. And it's a very sensitive topic, which is urban transport. So now we're developing a joint program with the mayors of China on transport. I'm going to go to the Brazil case next, but I think I will end the China case with a message. I would have never imagined that we would have been able to work with our Chinese partners in courses that basically challenge the conventional wisdom of what is being done. Our courses are not ratifying what was done. We are in fact questioning it in a very careful and structured way, using evidence from around the world. I think that's a very big lesson about capacity building. Don't underestimate the imagination of what you can do. The next case is Brazil. And now I'm going to talk about the National Capacity Building Program for Cities. And there they do have a very interesting program as well as in China. And the question here that I have is that in Brazil you have a system designed to fix problems of the past. I love Brazil. I've worked there many, many years. And they are experts in Brazil, sadly because they've made big mistakes. And they have managed to have the innovation and the courage to address them and correct them. But my question is, with that mindset, can the system not only address the mistakes of the past, but prevent the problems of the future? It's a real challenge. The national program promotes, coordinates, and supports institutions as well as technical development. And it seeks to develop efficiency in the implementation of programs to develop, there's a typo here, democratic and equitable governance. And I think they have a very politically sensitive capacity building. They know that they need to serve their clients. The key areas of engagement, and I won't go through all of them, but they include systems of public administration, planning, participatory planning, social control, preparations of the local development plans, as well as trying to promote the national programs. Because like India, there's a very decentralized federal system where the states have a big role. And they recognize that in Brazil in their national capacity building program. The actions that they have include a very, very effective collaboration with universities. They recognize the power that the universities have to, as agents of change, and I'll go into specifically into a case in the next couple of slides. They address the hard issues like land title regularization, disaster risk management, urban mobility, and transport. And let me go to the more interesting part. And I would invite everyone, and I'll make available the link to their portal. Their portal is fantastic. It is very, very accessible. A slight part of it is in English. The rest is in Portuguese. But it is, I think, an example of what a capacity building portal should look like. I actually am a member of the portal. You can go in and log in and become a member, download videos. They have wonderful courses online. So I think the message is you need to a capacity building program needs to reach out to everyone. And they do that very successfully. And I'll talk about one specific program, which is their National Slum Upgrading course, which again is something that we were very, very lucky to be involved in. We stumbled upon it. We can't take credit for it. But we played a very tiny but interesting part. And I think I'm glad that we're able to at least share this story. And the story is that as they launched a very brave program to address the slum problem and challenges, they recognized that they needed to have uniform capacity building at a national level in order to access the billions of dollars that would be made available. And they did that. So this course is compulsory. If you're going to access funds, you need to take the course. You need to know. There's no excuse. And so this has been a very successful collaboration between the University of Sao Paulo and the Ministry of Cities, and we played a small part, a small role in making it in putting the course together as a distance learning initiative. I think this is one of the great achievements of the urban planning practice around the world in the last decade. The last case, I'll talk about the case of Mexico, which the lessons there are different. And it's basically a lessons of public and private provision of capacity building. And the question there I would have is politically contestability sufficient to signal the creation of capacities to build better cities? In the case of Mexico, you have strong national institutions, the National Institute for Public Administration with some training, some certification, but not enough to go around. And then you have, with this vacuum left, because you have a very vibrant political system, a lot of political contestability, ideas matter. Ideas win elections, and they know that political platforms are built on strong, innovative ideas. The private sector has gotten involved in training local governments in a very big way. They have created institutes. Universities have created broad platforms of learning, and they have also created virtual institutes. We happen to collaborate with this one the last 15 years in delivering courses that don't address the basics. They address the broad imagination of entrepreneurs that want to make a difference. And that, I think, is a very important aspect that we'll address in the concluding slides, which are approaching. The last idea I'd like to end in the case of Mexico, as I did with the case of the slums, is an idea that emerged from the course about 15 years ago. And that's the idea of municipal research and planning institutes, based on the great innovations of the city of Curitiba in Brazil. The story goes that when we started our courses about 15 years ago, there was only one institute in Mexico that was inspired on the Curitiba model of professionalizing urban planning in a way that makes it compelling to the political entities that they need to make the right decisions. They make evident to the public and to the private sector that there is a better way, that there are choices to be made. And this semi-independent agencies with professionalized cadre of practitioners, with an independent cycle of naming so that the mayor can't remove them or the governor can't remove them, with a competitive pay scale so that it enables them to recruit talent and retain talent. It's a wonderful story. Now in Mexico there are over 50 of these institutes, and they are changing cities. We have seen it. Let me then go to the concluding slides. As I said, I'll focus on supply, demand, and included in that is the issue of regulation. So what are the successful trends? First, the creation of knowledge and the codification of urban practice. That is happening. That needs to happen. In key fields such as municipal administration, municipal finance, slum upgrading, urban violence prevention, and PPPs, and we see that happening. So once you have best practice, you have practice, you need to codify it. You need to make sure that you can tell the story in a compelling way. It's not enough to have success. You need to be able to convey it, to make it, to really light fires in the imaginations of people. Let me switch my piece of paper. I have reading glasses and I have a real tough time reading small print. Apologies. The next item is the customization of local context and regulatory framework to the federal case, in the federal case of Brazil and Mexico, and the standardized unitary states in the case of China. So you can have one idea, but you need customization to make sure that you reach the audience that you are looking for in large countries. The third point is enabling and facilitating the establishment of public and private capacity building institutions to create and deliver knowledge and know-how, and allow adding value to differentiate and increase the quality. That's the big trend in Mexico. So you have a program
And then at the state and at the municipal level, you have institutions that tailor it and add value and specificity. The next big trend is that government does not need to produce the capacity building, not necessarily. But it can enable it through grants to finance directly to the learners as vouchers at the national, state, and local government levels. You need to mix resources, both from the private, the public, and the private, public, private, and civic. And the last message is that capacity building impact results need to be measured and tracked to maintain quality. And I think, very important to me at least, I have seen it, is that you need non-threatening benchmarking. I believe in that very, very important. You can't shame people into success. You can really promote success by breathing an air of optimism by providing incentives, but you can't shame someone from being the poorest performers. In the case of Chile, we work with them closely. Last slide on the issue of demand for capacity building and trends. The first, I think it's essential to understand demand through a couple of non-conventional methods. One is a needs assessment. That's somewhat conventional. The second one, willingness to pay. Someone needs to be willing to pay, either the government or the learners. And a third important aspect is willingness to learn. You have to have a group of individuals that are willing to really dive in and engage. Those are essential aspects of the demand. Second, recognizing market segmentation from low performers, reform-minded, and public entrepreneurs. So the capacity building shouldn't just hit the average. You will get very few right if you hit the average. Make sure that you can reach everybody, the high performers and the low performers, by customizing. The system needs to meet all segments. Next point is you need to differentiate between capacity to comply and the capacity to perform and excel. Don't just worry about compliance. Worry about excellence. Worry about innovation. You need to do both the floor and ideally a very high ceiling that no one can reach, and they're always imagining a better future. Next idea and concept of trends is that you need a certification system which aims to professionalize urban and municipal management, and that's the case in China, in Mexico, and in Brazil. Second to last point, you need to make the achievement of capacity consequential and normative to enable professional status and career advancement. And that is the case in China and Brazil. In the case of Brazil, you can actually click and look at the tally of your certifications that you have. In China, people keep a report card of their certifications. They're very proud of it. They are who they are because they know, not because they know somebody. And I think that is a very, very important differentiation in the way that we need to build our cities. And last point, you need to develop an objective certification process that avoids the moral hazard of having the capacity provider being the certificate, being the one that provides the certification. You need to have a distance so that it makes sense. And we've seen that extensively in China and in Mexico, and we've worked with them. So I hope that these points provide some input into the debate. This is something that I feel very, very strongly about, and it's a great opportunity to chat with you and learn. Thank you very much.